All right, beautiful people, here we are back in the podcast chairs and couch with the great Darren Murr. Mate, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's bloody good to have you. Tyler wanted to jump on too because...
Yeah, well, this is one we've both been waiting for a while. If you're a listener of the Quickfire 30 episodes, I think both myself and Locke... You should be, but both myself and Locke answer to the question of who in your world would make a great guest for the podcast. Both answered Darren Murr, so we've both really been looking forward to this one ever since you walked through the doors October last year. You've been around in our lives for a while before then, but started training, I think, during the lockdown when we did the car park sessions.
Yep.
Last year.
When everyone first started coming back, and best thing I did. Yeah, best thing I did.
We still can't shake you.
Bit of praise going on so far. I like it.
It's good. I tell you what, the
Lots of
imposter
love.
syndrome is starting to peak big time right
Yeah?
now.
Well, no pressure, but this better be the best episode yet. They say never meet your heroes, but here we are with Darren Murr, so it's an absolute pleasure, mate. First question for you. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
It's a good question. And probably not one I've given a lot of thought to before you asked me before the camera came on. The one thing I've learned as I've got older and wiser and learned to sort of sit more comfortably in life is just being around people and trying to help people be better, whether that be business, whether that be sport. Just find a way to have people work together and be better at what they do. Footy is a massive driver for that, but that spilled over into business in the last sort of 5 to 10 years since sport coaching business has been better.
What is it about coaching sport and coaching, and I guess the challenges of coaching that's translated over or transferred over to business?
It's a bit cliche, and it's something that's spoken about in here a lot. Just showing up, and it translates. And I've heard you say this over and over and over again, and I use it at work. Sometimes if you turn up, even if it's uncomfortable or it's not going to be nice or whatever, you tick that off, and all of a sudden you've made a step, whatever that step is, whatever direction it goes. You've just achieved something, and it's a win. It really is. I mean, it's a really simple thing. In business, people don't show up a lot because they don't want to give of themselves. They don't want to invest. So if you get them to show up and contribute, then all of a sudden they start to buy in and feel like they've got something to offer.
Have you always been someone who's shown up?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I've floated through life a lot. And it's only as you, my generation, I think in particular, we weren't exposed to a lot of the modern focus on growth and development and things like that. So I can honestly say I blinked and 30 years of life had passed. And apart from having a beautiful wife and starting a family, you sort of shout out Michelle Murr. Yeah. I sort of looked back and went, okay, wow, what have I done?
I was going to ask, what's been a catalyst for that change? You said you hadn't always shown up. What has been a catalyst for that change? Has it been, your beautiful family or?
And Locke will understand this. When you have a family, it does sharpen your focus a little bit. But no, actually, funnily enough, I actually think starting coaching junior footy was the biggest thing. Because I remember you met Steve White through footy. We were standing.
Another shout out.
Yeah, another shout out. We were standing at Narambi Oval about 10 years ago with 40 odd kids and 20 odd parents, and they're trying to get 2 under-10s teams together and one coach, and the president comes across and says, well, we need another coach.
Gave you the tap on the shoulder.
Well, it's not, it was just to the parent group. If someone doesn't do this, then 20 odd kids are going to miss out.
Yeah, well.
And I sort of looked around expecting someone else to do it. And no one did. And I'm like, and Das, and he was the same with footy then as he is now. So I'm like, if it's not me, he doesn't get it, because you could see that the 20 that they'd picked had sort of already were off, and so up went the hand. And that was probably the first time where and you talk about imposter syndrome, I'd been out of footy for a long time and really hadn't achieved much. You go, am I capable of this? But stick your hand up and run, see what happens.
What was that first? I mean, you would have had some training sessions, but what was that first game like when you've got 20 kids running around, you've got the team sheet in front of you, and you're like, what the fuck have I got myself into?
I wish I had a video of it. That was priceless. We spent 25 minutes in the rooms before the game trying to show these cats, and that's the only way I can describe it. It's like herding cats, where they're playing and what that meant.
Yeah, true.
And we had it so well drilled into them, and then they went out, and of course they tossed the coin.
Yeah.
And they
kicked
the other way. So we had kids just running all over the place. And in the end, like, we had the runner out there trying to, and they went, nah, I just called him back. Went, let him go. We'll fix it later.
Yeah.
And we just, because it was the first moment I realised it's actually not that important.
Yeah.
At that age in particular, it's just not that important. Parents were bent out of shape.
It's a good little life lesson.
It was. Parents were completely bent out of shape because they thought their kid was playing full forward or whatever, and he was down the other end of the ground. But yeah, it was just, I'm like, well, there's 24 kids with a mind of their own. We can't fix this. Just let it go.
First big spanner in the works. You talked about imposter syndrome, and myself and like a lot of my mentors have learned along the way that doesn't really go away.
No.
You're now in like a senior coaching role with the YC Stonecats. How have you dealt with that imposter syndrome through your years of coaching and business?
It's a premiership senior coaching role to Darren Murr.
It's no, it's escalated. It's probably got worse in the last couple of years, and that's as a result of exposing yourself to more, and that's business as well. Footy was obviously driven by the boys that I coach wanting to find a home and connection with YC, and that all happening, and then turning up and having that group train with the seniors was great, but then realising actually that means I've got to coach the seniors, and I didn't plan on that. And you're standing there in front of yours truly, Chinny, BJ, Dill Robin, and you're going, I've coached 8 years of junior footy. Yeah. What the hell have I got to offer these guys? Seriously, and you would understand this. So they go, what can I say that is going to have any impact on these people? How am I going to help them? And I've literally found myself just letting words come out and looking people in the eye going, I've got no idea if this is going to help you, but I'm just going to do it. Best thing I did was pull out a training drill, not a drill, but a mechanism in a drill we used when kids weren't talking, and made people ask please and thank you when they wanted the footy. If you wanted the footy, you had to scream please.
Good manners.
And still one of my favourite pre-season sessions ever. Yeah. It was hilarious.
And Kev mentioned it at presentation last year. He's going, who the fuck is it? What the? But he said within 20 seconds, I'm engaged in this drill and I'm screaming, I want, please, thank you. And the noise levels went up. And from that moment on, I thought, I can do anything here, and they're just going to do it. And that gives you some confidence to try. But I still to this day stand in front of some of those guys and know that they know more than I do.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I've found too. Like, it is really intimidating, like standing in front of people that, whether in the gym floor or in a footy environment that are better than you, but in that situation, like they respect your role and no one's going to tell you to get fucked and not listen to you. Like they respect you and they're going to take what you provide on board.
Yeah, I think that's the lens that you and I maybe layer over it, but I reckon at local level, they don't just give you respect. So, and you might confirm or deny this, but they will tolerate you if you're in a role. Because I've witnessed some average leaders or average coaches, and you watch the body languages of players, and they tolerate, and they're polite, and they do it because they know that the club needs them to do it. But there's a difference, and you've got the respect of people on the gym floor, and I know people at Red Hill. So, but that's what we tell ourselves. They have to do it because we're in an official role. And it's not the case. You've still got to earn it.
I think tolerate's a good starting point. Like that, like genuinely, that's a really good way to look at local footy, because you got 70 blokes, all from the relatively close proximity, that are all doing different things. From different, some have been playing footy for 20 years, some are new, some have played high levels, some haven't, and some are there for fun, some are there because they want to achieve things. Tolerate's a good start, and yeah, you're right. You've got to earn that respect, but you've also got to earn the engagement and the connection and the trust and the willingness. And I think that is built over time and quality conversations and being able to connect over something simple like saying please and thank you.
Yeah.
You're 10 years into your coaching journey?
Yeah.
Or so?
Yeah. Roughly.
What could you articulate what your coaching philosophies are that you've built over the last 10 years?
It's funny because I've tried to write this down a few times and I've never been a strong one at putting these words into play, but the back end of this year, if someone asked me, I care deeply about the people that are going to invest time. I ask a lot, set really high standards, and from there we'll expect just unconditional effort. So that's probably, in simple terms, the way I'd go about it is there's a deep care for all the athletes that I've coached. There's guys now at young men at Pines and Red Hill, and I still care about them a lot. But I do ask a lot, and I do ask them to be unconditional. I do ask them to show up, and I do ask them to do the work. And funnily enough, we've never not had success. Now, ultimately, winning a flag in footy is viewed as being successful, but this year would be probably one of the most successful we've had because who we were chasing was so much better than us.
Yeah. And the progress you were able to make was significant.
In a short time, yeah. I mean, the season just battered along because under-19s footy is so sick, but there was that one group, and I said that in my losing speech, on that having that one mob to chase made us better and gave us a purpose. And I think that's really important. Just forget footy, that's a life thing.
It's life, yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on you'd always been successful. So in years where you hadn't, where success wasn't defined by winning a premiership, what did success look like in those years where you didn't get the cliche ultimate success? What did success look like?
Every one of the kids that started the year finished the year better.
Yep. It's growth.
And growth's a weird word. It's a buzzword, I think, of your generation. But they just got better. And the one thing that we're pretty proud of, and Steve's had a massive impact in my coaching journey, is that generally our messages are around life. They're laid a little bit more deeply than pick the footy up, kick the footy, catch the footy, chase that bloke, tackle that bloke. There's a lot of stuff there that we hope these kids will take and run with life, and that's why junior footy is great, because you're having such a massive impact on young minds so early. But the same things have happened with the senior players. So, and I think we all crave it. Even coming here, like talking to you guys, I still crave that sort of direction, those conversations, that fulfillment, that help, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's been very reflective in our relationship, how it's built between your relationship with us as coaches on the gym floor, but then you're also coach at footy. It's been a cool juxtaposition to be able to, at the end of the day, all life is just relationship building, and it's connecting with good people and finding people that are on similar wavelengths and doing cool shit together. What's been the biggest learning shifting from a group of 16, 17-year-old kids, shifting and taking them to a senior club where you've got blokes that are 30, 36, Byron, shout out, and the other coaches and older. What's it been like basically taking the kids that you've looked after so long into that environment?
It's funny because it doesn't feel any different. And I get very reflective, and that's something I've forced myself to do in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, probably. Well, especially since being a parent, but because we've watched these young men grow, and they were literally babies when we started, and they're now young men. and they're now engaging in conversations that are just, if you strip it back to where you started when they were 8, you go, I can't believe I'm having this conversation with this bloke. That must be
so, because I guess as a dad, you get to do that with your kids. You get to see them, and I'm starting this journey, and we're almost 3 years in with Luce, and I can't believe how much she's changed. So I can only imagine the 8 to 19 that you've gone through with all your boys.
It's crazy, but I look at Byron, and he's a 15-year-old. No, he's 36, but he's a 15-year-old. So it's just getting to a senior footy club. Yeah, they've got less life experience, and they've got more that they need to learn and do and live, but they're just young men. And in a footy club, you're just a group of young men, whether they're 30-year-old young men or 18-year-old young men. They're all the same. Variations, but generally they're wired pretty similarly. But yeah, the watching them grow from 8 to 19 has been the intriguing thing. I mean, Ethan Stanley is a perfect example. I mean, this kid we battled to keep playing footy, and he's a superstar. He just found himself probably beyond where all of the pathway programs would look at him, but. Standing at Sorrento when the under-19s weren't playing, and we'd had a training session, and we were waiting for the twos to sort of do their thing, and all of a sudden I'm talking to this kid, and we're having a really deep life conversation and philosophical conversation about work, and then it gets to footy, and his whole face and demeanour changed, and I'm looking at this kid going, you didn't want to play 5 years ago. And then I realised, oh shit, I've just missed the senior team meeting. Stuff like that. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's I look at kind of ages now completely differently now that I'm one of the older guys in a football club where, my nickname was Kid for the first couple of years because I was one of the younger guys, and I just looked up to all these giants and played football with them for years, and now majority of the guys I started with are retired, and I'm looking at it going like, fuck, age doesn't matter in the slightest. Like, once you get past 18, you can do whatever you want. It's all it is just a number, and people's life experiences and demeanor and I guess personalities don't change so dramatically as you kind of shift from 25 to 30 and figure stuff out. Like my relationship with you and with Das freaks me out because I'm kind of in the middle. Das is me 10, 12 years ago, and I feel as though we're on a similar path to what you've trodden as a dad, and I kind of I have conversation with you, and I'm like, fuck, I feel like I'm talking to your son, and vice versa.
Das is a middle-aged man in a 18-year-old's body.
This is true. This is true. He's very, very stoic.
Yeah, he is, and I'll take some of the blame for that. Serious fellow who doesn't let himself let his hair down very often, but and that's the beautiful thing about being in footy clubs. You just see all these blokes, and as long as everyone is showing up, and everyone is doing the work, and everyone is invested in each other and cares about each other, really good things can happen. And I don't think we're actually anywhere near at our max at YC, which scares me.
No way.
There's a lot of what we did this year, which is based on the strategy stuff that Paul put in place, but a lot of it's talent based. And to me, the last bastion is that full deep connection. We're all in, and if you're going to beat one of us, you have to beat 21 others. We're not quite there yet, so that scares me. And sorry,
Hillman are coming though.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. But I watch this group and I go, there's so much power left in them, and that's not a coach driven thing. I can see that coming from within the playing group. So
that level of trust and willingness and connection just takes time, I think.
Yeah, it does,
and it takes just takes reps of training sessions and games, and some of the boys that I'm lucky enough to still be playing with and I've played with for a decade or so. Like, we have this connection that I can't really articulate it.
It's built on trust, and you and I've spoken about that a couple of times. I remember being challenged by, I remember who it was. It was someone associated with the club to start with because of my philosophy on wanting these kids to be exposed to play senior footy. And they said, you're biased. And I looked at them, yep, I am, 100%.
Yep.
And they've gone, see, coaches are biased. I'm going, yeah, we are.
Everyone's
And anyone who says they're not is crazy. And I've had this conversation with Michelle. I'm absolutely biased because I've been into battle with these kids for 9 years. And the ones that have hung in there, they've done the work. They keep showing up. They get up when they get knocked down. So I know what I'm going to get. I trust that. And I'm developing that same connection with the senior bloke. So it's not an 18-year-old thing, it's just if you go to war with someone or go to work with someone, whatever that is, and you know they're going to show up, you know they're going to do the work, and their best may or may not be good enough, but you know you're going to get it, and you trust them. So,
what is it that you love about football clubs? And I kind of half know this answer, but I look at sporting clubs and football clubs especially as a 21st century church in terms of place to go to connect and to get around everyone. What is it that you love about that particular environment?
With young men in particular, and it's probably the lens that I look at through, having that place to go, that one community outside of work and family where they can go and feel like they belong and feel like they are a part of something. And get whacked when they don't play their role, and get cuddled when things aren't working, and it gives them a sense of belonging is probably the simplest word. And I think young men in particular need it more than ever, because there's just not a lot of that structure in their life. So the discipline, but just that place where they can go and belong. As long as they keep going, they show up, they do the work, then everyone will put their arms around them. I've said this to Das a few times. It doesn't matter which footy club you're a part of, you're going to have a bad moment in your life, and if you've invested in that place, then they'll be there as long as you need them. And that's the great thing about them, just that sense of community, that sense of belonging. And I took that for granted as a kid. That's probably the biggest lesson that I learned coming back into coaching is, I didn't get this. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, talk us through your football career.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What was your experiences with football clubs as a player versus as a coach?
Yeah, my junior days were fondly remembered at PNC Footy Club in Frankston, which doesn't exist anymore, opposite Frankston High at Dallicum Park there. My best mate's dad was the coach of that team by and large for most of my junior career, and he was the MC at my wedding. I had a big part in his funeral. Just the depth of that connection is probably what I draw on now, and I didn't realise that at the time, but that part of footy was amazing. And I was good, but I didn't really understand that I was good, and I didn't really understand how to maximise that. I had a grandfather who was a great mentor, and mum was amazing, but I didn't have that male guy in my corner helping me to learn and navigate that stuff, and people will take that the way they want to. But I think for young men in particular, that's pretty important growing up. But good enough to get into all the pathways, and back then, St Kilda development squads, St Kilda under-19s. And that was the moment where I think my footy journey split from what I think is valuable now. I never found my way to a senior footy club. I went straight from a junior footy club into pathways, and then disappeared into what that looks like, and was at St Kilda for 4 years, or 3 and a bit, 2 years of 19s, and then a year and a half on their list in the 2s, in a time where you could be delisted in the middle of the year. So that's a real kick in the nuts to a young man when you're told in the middle of a season you're not wanted here anymore.
And you don't have anywhere to go.
No.
How old were you when?
So was it 21-ish? 21-ish.
Yeah.
So, played, 2 years of 19s. It would have been around 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredibly, like, when I was 21, like, I felt like a 15-year-old still. Like, still do sometimes. Yeah, what were your sort of coping mechanisms with that, and, like, how?
Alcohol. Hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
I think the simplest way that I cope was just to not really sit in it, not really reflect and learn from it, was to just sort of push it to one side and almost forget it happened. So if you go into denial, then it's great.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ignorance is bliss.
Absolutely. And then you have this false bravado that you're better than what you are. And I reflect now, and I had plenty of opportunities at St Kilda to do better. And I got really close a few times, but didn't grasp them and didn't know what they looked like and didn't know what the work meant. So then walk out and start to blame, well, this, it was that, and whatever. And we all know now as we get older, then it's everything you've got or everything you need, you've got inside you. It's your fault. It's no one else's fault. So, but then trying to find my way after that, I fell out of love with the game for many reasons, because it just got hard. The body started to break. I think that's the other thing that I've learned is when your mind starts to go, your body goes. So, I went back to Frankston. I didn't play for the rest of that year. I went back to Frankston in the VFA at that point for a year and a bit and just couldn't get going. And you sort of then start to feel like a failure. And Robert Mace, who was my high school PE coach from Frankston High,
Same.
Wow, shows you how long he was teaching for. I caught up with him a little while ago.
He's a good man.
So he was coaching at Frankston at the time and finished up there and went down to Rye as coach. And the end of that season when it happened, I played the back end of that season with a double hernia, and I didn't realise that at the time, but I'd got the fittest that I could ever remember being. I was running from the bottom of Oliver's Hill to the gym at Tower Hill Road in South Frankston and back 4 times a week, and then doing an hour and a half in the gym and then running back again. And about halfway through the year, I thought, groin sore and I can't change direction, and just loaded up on anti-inflammatories, got through. But I had double hernia operation at the end of the year, and then remember hearing nothing from anyone at the footy club. Yeah. And I'm going, hang on, I've just wrecked myself
for this.
And then Rob rang me and said, I've just been finished up and I'm going to Rye, would you come down? And I was 21 as a playing assistant coach. And I'm like, yeah, why not? And again, sliding doors moment, should have just buckled in for the ride at Frankston. Yeah. But the easy option was no one loves me. Yeah. There's some good coin on offer here and I trust this bloke because I've been through 10 years of school with him. So I went down there and regret it, not because Rye was a problem, but it wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah. Then a year and a bit there, and then that was it. I think it was about 23. Round 2 or round 3, couldn't get my body up and kept breaking down, kept missing games. Again, really good pre-season, tore a hamstring in a practice match, got myself back 2 or 3 games in, and still on a Thursday night as a 23-year-old, I couldn't move properly. Yeah. Just got through a game on the weekend, and I remember I slumped in the floor at Rye in the change rooms and just started crying in the shower after that game, and until everyone had gone, and walked out hoping there was no one there, and Rob was still there, and I just said, I can't do it. Just can't do it anymore. I just cannot do it. I'm done.
It's crazy at that age to have to go through that.
Yeah.
Essentially alone.
Yeah, well, it was because none of my mates were great footy mates, and I had no deep connection with football. Yep. Football was a thing that I did, and I thought it was me. And then I lost that slowly, and I clearly was grieving through that whole process. But I had no one. And Mum was great. We're a footy family, so Mum understood. But as a 21-year-old boy, that's not what you want. Yeah. So again, you just turn to partying and whatever. It was sad because reflecting on it now, if I had shown up and kept doing the work, I think it could have turned, and not necessarily for success, but just for reward and connection and belonging and all of that stuff. The good stuff. Yeah, 100%.
That could be a segue to my next question is, what would current Daz go back and tell 21, 23-year-old Daz that's been delisted? He's feeling like a failure, feeling unloved at his footy clubs. What would you go back and tell that young man?
you'll be all right. Just show up and do the work. Just keep turning up. You'll be okay. And whatever okay looks like, we know that has a multitude of lenses. Yeah, you'll be okay. It's probably the simplest thing I would say is you just put your arm around someone and you'll be okay. It feels bad, it looks bad, and it is bad at this minute, but you will be okay.
Did you ever go back to footy?
Yeah, I did actually. We moved down here. Michelle and I moved down here in 1996, and of course Mornington were at their busy best at that point in time. So my mates and I would be regulars on the hill down at Mornington, watching Goose do his stuff. Yep. And I played against Goose in the 19s at VFL, AFL level at that point. And the year and a bit I was at Frankston, he was there too. So I had a relationship with him, and I was blind, absolutely pissed off a nut. On the hill, I was 29, and he's turned to me halfway through the second quarter. He's playing. He's Murray, and I'm like, yeah, Goose. I said, concentrate, mate. He goes, no, come up. I need to speak to you after the game. I'm like, yeah, no worries. And I looked at my mates, and I had a few drinks at that point, but I had enough. I'm going, he's going to try and get me to play. And they've gone, mate, you haven't played for 6 years. You're mad. I'm going, no, this smells. We'll go up in the rooms because I know we'll get free drinks. But don't leave me, because if you leave me, I'm going to play.
Yeah.
Well, I've walked up, and the team manager and the president's given mates drink cards, and they've ushered me into an office. And so they were gone. They had $50 drink cards.
Do exactly what was.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And half an hour later, I walked out of the office, and they're going, where have you been? I've gone, thanks. I'm playing footy again.
Look what you've done.
Yeah, good that.
And then I had to go home and tell a pregnant wife, oh, you know that thing I haven't been doing for a while? And we're due to have a baby around the finals time of that thing. I'm doing it again.
Back.
Fantastic.
And she's like, no, you're not. And I went, yeah, I think I am. So, but best thing I ever did. Yeah. They offered money, and not crazy money, but it was, we'll give you this and we'll give you that. I said, no. I want to be okay. So I want to be able to go to a physio. Yeah. I need a pair of boots. That's all I want. And Goose was the oldest. I was the second oldest. And then there was a big gap. Yeah. So I was called Grandpa.
Good.
So and that was a time warp in and of itself. I walked out of a change room as a 23-year-old and into a change room as a 29-year-old. Doesn't sound like...
different world.
But it is. It's massive. The language was different. The music was different. And I'm like, whoa, time warp. This is amazing. But the connection that I built really quickly with these young guys was... They probably don't remember it. In fact, I guarantee most of them wouldn't, because it was a blip. It was half a year in their footy careers. Yeah. But it meant the world to me. Played a couple of games in the twos, then got back into the ones and played in a record losing margin to EDS in the grand final. But contributed, and remembered that I could play. And that was the important thing. Yeah. Actually, you know how to play the game. You weren't, when you finished, you thought you were all those questions, how did I do this? Yeah. How did I do? All those questions were answered, and built a deep enough connection that a couple of the boys were really devastated that they couldn't win the game for me, because at that point Mornington were winning every second year, sorry. And I'd not won a senior flag. And we sat in the rooms, and I had a beer in my hand, losing grand final 90-odd points. And I'm like, I'm done now. I'm okay. I can walk away from the game. I'm okay. And that was weird, because they, coming back next year, I'm like,
devastated, yeah.
No, I'm okay. I'm all right.
Yeah.
Strange, but it was good fun. Good fun.
Yeah. What did the shift from, I guess, focusing on you and football to then obviously having the kids, what was that like? And how did that change your day-to-day, and how did that change your outlook?
You had to shift, and I'm open now, a selfish guy, and you psychoanalyse yourself to the cow come home for the reasons why, but I was, and at times you still drift into that, but you have to shift. You can't be selfish as a parent. You just can't. There's just no way you can thrive and survive as a parent. And I was lucky, I am lucky, have got an amazing lady in my life who was the glue and keeps that together. So it was a challenge, but you straight away shift into, okay, we've got these little humans, and we have to make sure that they get a fair and reasonable start at this thing, because this thing's not easy, and if we fuck it up for them, then they're starting, like the if they're starting off the black mark, and I'm sure it's not a reason that they won't win, but you just make it harder than it needs to be.
That means they're faster at the start.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest thing for that, is you shift from that really selfish, self-centered, what am I going to do, what's life about for me, into, okay, well, what do we need to do, what's important for Michelle, Charles, Das, holidays. Every decision we made was around them. So, that's the simple answer.
Yeah.
In that break period, just shifting back to like business, so between 23 and 29, you weren't involved with footy. How did you occupy your time? Because you wouldn't have had the family or the kids then either.
No.
What did that period of your life look like?
Like a lot of that first 20 years, it just happened and it went. It came and went really quickly. I had no idea what I wanted to do, because most of us growing up in my generation, and just if you were good at footy, you wanted to be a footballer, and I had no plan B, and I was not motivated to study. Mum worked in the promotional merchant. So I'll step back. I did a year and a half of a landscape garden apprenticeship while I was at St Kilda and loved it, but just couldn't. At that moment, that was when the AFL/VFL was going professional but semi-professional in the resources, and
so doing that job and then trying to play footy.
It was hard. It was really, really hard, and that was the first moment I went, oh, no, I can't. So I walked away from that, and then just did stuff, whatever that stuff was, for a few years. And then Mum realised that I needed some direction from a work perspective, because otherwise it was just partying, and that's no good. And she's worked in merch. She worked in merch for all of her life, and got me involved with the business she was at then. So that's what it was, selling T-shirts and caps and stuff to clubs and businesses. And that occupied my life until, up until a year ago. That was the industry I was in, drifted to different businesses and different opportunities within that. It was made redundant as a part of that journey too, which was interesting. But it was good because you worked with businesses like Virtus and you worked with BHP. So the diversity of who you spoke to was really stimulating. And the product is just ever changing. I mean, you don't do the same hoodies 2 years in a row and people go, hoodie's a hoodie. Well, no, it's not. This year you wanted a warm hug.
If I do different hoodies, because people are like, I want the fucking old ones.
But so it was good. But again, it was just something that I fell into, and just all of a sudden 20 years later, shit, I've been doing that for 20 years. And that's weird, because there's no thought that's gone into that. There's no planning. And you go, was it ultimately the best thing that I could have done? Probably not. But it just is,
And it was almost a means to an end in a way, because family and kids were the...
Yeah. Well, the first bit of it wasn't. It was just a way to fund life.
Yeah.
And I've got mates. The mate I work with now, Rob, he's incredibly driven and was starting to try and work out what he was going to do and who he was going to be at that point in time, and made some incredible sacrifices. And now he's this amazing success story, and I'm one of his, I'm going to use the word minions. That sounds terrible, but I'm one of his minions. And you sort of look at that, and they're amazing sliding doors moments. Now, and I've spoken to him about it ad nauseum. Hats off to him, because he was willing to do the things required, take the risk required, show up and do the hard, really hard things, and risk a lot to get where he is now. And I wasn't. I was floating and life was good.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, everyone would have thought I was really successful, because we were probably earning, between Michelle and I, a little bit more than some of our friends. So we were doing fine. But there was no purpose to it. Michelle wanted to be a mum, and that was her purpose, and she enjoyed being with her friends. But I just floated through that period.
You alluded to changing careers a year or so ago. Was that driven by a desire to follow a purpose?
Probably not so much a desire to follow a purpose, but a desire to break the cycle of doing what you always know because it's safe and easy.
Yeah.
Sort of what we were talking about before. That imposter syndrome, I'd always found a reason to not try something new.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't know that. I don't have the education. Whatever. All of these reasons why you don't do something. That's the imposter syndrome coming out. You find these lenses to put over the front of it and look through them and go, okay, well, I can't do it because, and that's your crutch, and you lean on it and away you go. To the point, and Robert asked me a few times over the journey to come and work for him, and the lens that I'd used in those early days was, I don't want to risk our relationship.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad one, because there are plenty of friends that have had business come between their life. But if I'm really honest about that, that was me going, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want you to see that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Just looking for a barrier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he rang me out of the blue middle of last year with another opportunity. And this was more concrete than any other. And I think his hope was that I would do it. I don't think the expectation was. And the space that I'm in now, I'm like, okay, so what does it all mean? What does it look like?
Yeah.
And if this doesn't work, what does it look like? Let's talk about that stuff. Yeah. If I tick off, here are all your expectations. If I tick them off, but I'm not good enough, like if I fail, but I'm trying to do all this stuff, are you okay? And he sort of looked at me and went, yeah, of course. So I said that as long as you know that I'm having a crack at all this, it's okay. And he went, yep. I said, okay, let's have a go.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was. So again, that was the purpose. I was thinking, okay, well, at this point in time, I'm 50 years old. Got to work for another, who knows, 10, 15, 20, the way life is. I can't keep doing the same stuff. I can't.
Yeah.
Can't keep showing up.
Would have been the main lessons over the last 12 months? I mean, there's probably been a few because there's been all this changes and shifts with footy as well, but...
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I'm not sure I've sat back and reflected on this 12 months enough, other than to know, and again, I know it's a sick and sad theme that keeps showing up, because like even today I'm in meetings with people who've been in an industry that has existed forever for 30 years, and I just don't know stuff, but keep walking into the room. Yeah. So that's probably what this year, and both footy and work has reinforced, that irrespective of how you feel, you're capable. You've got the tools you need inside you to deliver. Yeah, you might need to learn stuff and you might need to absorb more information, but you can't do that unless you step into that environment and open yourself up to it. So that's probably been the most common theme. And footy is the same. Having the opportunity to coach the seniors this year in Paul's absence, it was the best way to coach a senior team ever. Everyone joked with me, he's the keys to the Ferrari, don't crash it.
1 from 1.
Yeah, 100%. But it was I reckon 12 months ago I wouldn't have done it. I would have said, oh, no. Well, found a way maybe to dilute doing it, but bringing more people in, and this year, no, fuck it. Do you
have a mantra or a self-talk or something that when you're faced with that choice, now you go, just do it, or do you have something that kind of gives you that self-kick to get moving?
Why not?
Yeah.
And it's not a why not me thing. It's just
why not?
Yeah, why not? The one thing I think we all learn, and you guys are learning younger than I am, is that there's nothing we're going to do in life, in real terms, that's going to do any damage to us in any way, shape, or form, if we, are good people. And so that whole fail thing, I'm a massive believer in you win or you learn. So that's probably the attitude that I've taken out of the last couple of years.
Yep.
Just keep showing up to win, and the worst that's going to happen is you're going to learn something.
Yep.
It's probably the simplest thing. And footy's a safe environment for me because I love the game. And that coaching is redirected or refound, then rekindled that passion that I had as a 15-year-old for playing, which I didn't think I actually had even when I went back to Mornington. So that's a no-brainer because you're not going to fail there. You just turn up and be involved in something you love doing, and win a flag, you don't win a flag.
Yep.
You meet great people. Like being at YC, I meet you. So I meet you. My son is exposed to this environment. My wife is exposed to this environment. So if you look at the domino effect from that one decision of being involved in a good footy club, and Red Hill's the same. Every club is good. It brings so much to your life. So
yeah, that's right. Like life is just about networking and relationship building, and like it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like I was talking to a young fella, Mitch Kennedy, last night, and it's funny, like me ending up here in this seat right now goes back to Mitch Kennedy that I barely know, like getting Cam Elliott, a former Virtus coach, down to Ballarat all those years ago. Like, everyone is just connected in some way, shape or form. It's incredible.
It's amazing, and it's being open to connect with those people, even if it's brief. I mean, Lockie, the first meeting with Lockie was a Zoom meeting where Schneids looped him in to try and present the club to the boys.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, and that's the weirdness of life. If when I was speaking to Paul and Schneids about these boys coming across, I said, Pines have been working with these kids for years, and they know the club and they know the players and they understand that. So somehow you need to connect the club to them really quickly. And it was COVID. How the hell do you do that? This guy could have said, no, I'm not doing that. But you jumped on a Zoom call with,
So I was asking if I wanted to talk about footy for 20 minutes. I was like, all right. Go on then.
15, 17-year-olds and their parents to try and sell the footy club. And then me knowing what his background was and knowing what Das was trying to achieve with his footy, and where he was training at that point was a hall. So then I reached out a week later and said, I know we don't know each other, but this is where Das is at, and this is what can you help him? And bang, that's...
I didn't know that's how you do, Matt.
Yeah, weird.
I'm learning something too.
Zoom.
Yeah.
A lot to be said for Zoom.
If I never see a Zoom again, I'll be out.
Mate, I still exist on Teams every day. We've got multiple meetings because when you're now doing business with people in the US and the UK, it's easy, but it's not fun.
What is your new business actually for the listeners, like for the last 12 months?
I'll work with it. The name will have no meaning to anyone, DAR Post, but we compete essentially with Australia Post, so e-commerce parcel deliveries. We're not a retailer, so we don't come and pick up your parcel from your street and deliver it somewhere, but we work with FedEx and DHL, Ascendia, big, what you would call freight aggregators from overseas who go out and sell their services to e-com businesses, big and small, and then we look after the lane from the US to Australia or from the UK to Australia and to New Zealand on their behalf, because it's an inconsequential lane for them. Like DHL and FedEx have their own planes and have their own infrastructure, but they don't use it here because the volumes are so low. And we can do it as efficiently and as cost effectively for them, and they don't have to invest. So that's what we do, and it's the growth is just extraordinary. It's just, I can't begin to explain how quickly. I mean, Rob's been in business for 20 years, but the business in this guy is really maybe 10, and the success is 3 to 5, and the real success is 18 months. Like COVID, it just went bang, went nuts when everyone started ordering online. Absolutely crazy, and it's just not stopped. Just not stopped.
Yeah, I mean, it's convenience, selling convenience.
Yeah, absolutely, you are.
I ordered some posters from Officeworks 2 days ago. They came from Sydney, even though I was like, there's an Officeworks 3 minutes down the road. But it's easier for me to just go whack, 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 done. And I was like looking at the tracking today, I was like, Sydney, bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, that can't be sustainable.
No.
But also, keep Darren in a job.
One plane to fly your posters from Sydney to
Yeah,
here.
100%. Expensive posters. But it goes to show you how conditioned as humans we've been to this thing, this phenomenon. I had a complaint 2 weeks ago from an everyday Joe Public who'd ordered something through an online store in the UK, and that store engaged with a business that we look after, and so of course we've got their parcel, and abusing our staff because our tracking online is misleading. And I'm looking at it going, yeah, and it's something we need to fix. Yep. But because so many businesses are programmed and mapped into them, the change has got to be really gradual, because you've got to take those businesses along for the ride. So we've been evolving it to get better. And I'm going, yeah, well, I get what he's saying. I understand it. But he was going really off tap. So in the end, one of the girls transferred him through, and I started talking to him, and he just hung up. I went, okay. And then I got this email. It was like a rant. So I brought up his parcel, and I'm looking at it and going, hang on, you ordered this on Friday out of Birmingham. And it's the following Thursday and it's in your hand.
Yeah, it's fucked.
What are you doing, man? What is the problem here?
Welcome to 2022.
What have we done wrong? So in literally 4 business days, he's ordered something from the UK and it's in his hand.
It's mental.
And he's going off because we're an untrustworthy, misleading business. I'm going, it just doesn't compute. But anyway.
I mean, it's a nice little like perspective shift. Just like, guys, zoom out for a second and go like, think about what is actually happening here. It's mental.
Yeah, you do, and you look at all the stages that it goes through. It's crazy, but we have these. It's interesting. So you talk about the impact of business, the footy on business, coaching and connection and humans on business. Our customer service team is based in the Philippines, and that is a good or a bad thing depending on what lens you look through it. But we couldn't find staff here to fill it, and then the model we're in, the volume of stuff you need, you can't. So there's a really good community over there. We've got this team. They're amazing. My role is new to the business, and the business has traditionally just sold stuff, delivered stuff, and dealt with stuff. And we're trying to lift service standards and make sure that customers have a great experience. And a part of that is trying to help this team be better at what they do. And I was sitting in a meeting about a month ago, and you know what it's like. You talk in a gym, you use numbers, weights and reps and sets, and it's just a number. It's a statistic up there. So for us, if we're delivering 98% of what we are given within a certain number of days, we're flying, we're going amazing. And that 98% just sits. Like, if we deliver 1 million parcels and we deliver 98% of them, that's a high industry standard. But work out how many parcels don't get delivered. If that's 2% of 1 million parcels, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. That's what I was thinking. So, but as a leadership team, all of that, we're all sitting around the table and going, okay, well, this is great. We're hitting amazing numbers. We're going really well. And I'm like, no, we're not. And they're looking at me, but we are. I'm going, no, we're not. I've got 12 people sitting in the Philippines who live in shit every day. Their whole job, all day, every day, is complaints.
Yeah, well.
All day. No one rings them and says, thanks very much for getting my parcel from the UK to Australia.
I'm so grateful for you.
Nah. All they get, and it's like they left it an inch outside, so that corner of the got wet. Like some of the most minute thing, and yes, if you're in that moment and that's you, maybe you get upset. But I'm like, so what you're telling me is if we're happy with this position, this 98%, that what they do doesn't matter. So we just look at them and go, really sorry, because our business is flying. You just have to deal with this. And I thought, I can't cop it, because essentially I'm telling 14 people that what they do doesn't matter because we're not willing to help them be better. We're not willing to be better to take some of that pain away.
Yeah.
And our CFO went, oh, I've never thought about it like that. And I'm going, no, I know. That's the issue. So that's the footy mentality that comes to me. It's like, no, we just got to be better. We've got to look after each other. We don't have to be the best, but we just got to look after each other.
Stop fucking complaining. All right?
Yeah.
Please.
Stop leaving shit reviews.
Yeah, 100%.
What does the future look like for you? What is the next 5-10 years in tail Baxi?
Footy.
Yeah.
Yeah, work. I actually really don't know. I was uncomfortable about this probably through my 30s and 40s even.
Yeah.
But I'm really comfortable with not knowing now. And I do love you. You are beautiful.
If you're listening, Banksy's just sitting there licking Darren's face at the minute.
I'm really comfortable not knowing. So there is some stuff with footy that I'd like to tick off. Now, whether that is me coaching in my own right at senior level or whether that's following my son, I don't know, but there will be footy. Michelle and I need to have some fun. So that will happen, but I don't know, and I'm actually really comfortable with that. Really comfortable with that. We had a meeting with our financial advisor yesterday, who we hate because we like lots of people stuff money up when we were a bit younger, and we're nearly recovered, but it means we're not going to be stinking filthy rich when we retire. But again, like, I used to be scared of those meetings. Yeah. Now I'm not. I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, there's a chunk of footy to be ticked off. What that looks like, what that feels like, I don't know. Yeah. Rob, who's my mate, this business, however much longer I'm there, it'll be about making it better for him for when he exits, because he will exit at some point and retire.
Yeah.
And the saleability of that then is important to him. So my time here, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, is about setting him up for success. So that's my purpose there. Kids, having grandkids, I don't know.
Yeah, heard it here first.
Charlie.
Little Darcy's running around.
I was about to say, sort it out, Darcy.
Yeah. I don't know if I could deal with another little Darcy, but no, he's good. He's a good boy.
He's a wonderful boy. Yeah, it's Would you ever look at doing your own thing? Because I don't know, you strike me as the kind of person that should be driving the bus,
running the business.
Yeah.
I've sat in this space for a long time, especially when I was in the merch industry, and didn't have the nuts to do it.
Just do it. Why not?
Yeah, but so now I sit back and go,
don't do it.
Now I sit back and go, that space is not the space. So yes, I would love to. Yeah. I don't know what that is though.
Yeah.
I love what you guys do here. So in a perfect world, this sort of business would be something that would appeal.
Like potential.
Correct. I do love Ted.
I know. I've been waiting to use that all for the last hour.
And, I keep looking at the office and down there going, what can I do that I can find myself sitting in one of those offices? Do I go back and do a mess? So yeah, there is a part of me that has that drive, definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm less concerned about it. Like, I used to have this tug of war in my own head. I need to do something because we want to be rich and we want to. Yeah. But now it's about, like, I walk into a place and go, it's pretty cool. I walk into Common Folk and go, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Like, it's the vibe of the place and the purpose of why it's built that appeals. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe I can build a freight business that does it.
I'm sure we can sort something out. Yeah. I mean, the longer I do this, the less it's about the training and the the exercise science side of things and the strength and conditioning. It's just about what this place means to people and the kind of people it attracts and what we're able to achieve together, and that's it.
Yeah, 100%.
At the end of the day, what you do doesn't really matter.
No.
Well, it doesn't matter in the slightest, the way I look at it.
No, I think the purpose thing is not overstated. If you know that you can get up in the morning and you have a reason to do, to be, to show up, then it makes life much easier. And we all have the ups and downs. Business, life is not. You keep telling me training is not linear. Life is not linear, and there's the ups are really steep. The downs can be just as.
Yeah.
But it's that reason to get back up and to go again, I think, is really important. Which an environment like this, if it was my business, it would be easy to understand it. Why? As I said, I love places like Common Folk or Laneway or whatever. Yeah. Snake Pit, little businesses like that. There is a purpose. They have a real passion for what they do, and their business is an extension of them. And yours gives you the ability to do this. I mean, I would never have dreamed of doing a podcast.
It's wonderful.
I still have imposter syndrome, and I'm not really sure.
Quite an
that didn't go away.
enjoyable conversation with Michelle on Monday. She's like, you don't want to interview him. He's not interesting. And like 15 minutes later in a session, she comes back. She's like, is he interesting?
She actually said to me, we took the dog for a walk before. She said, I've had anxiety all day about this. I said, thanks, Dale. Appreciate the support.
She got a pump up. Any more?
When are we getting Michelle on?
Oh, there you go. Good
Would
luck
she?
with that. I reckon you could get her on. And in fact, I mean, I think I can talk. She can talk. She loves a chat. Yeah. She loves a chat. So it'd be fun. Even as I said to her, you know what? If they play this back and it's no good, it goes in the bin. But we've had fun for an hour talking, so that's okay. Yeah, she'd be interesting actually. She'd be interesting. She doesn't think she is, but she would be interesting. I think she's lived a bit.
Stories to tell.
I'll leave that. We'll let that slide off into the horizon and whet the appetite of the listeners maybe for another time.
Yeah, if you want Michelle Murr, shout out. Mate, thank you for spending the last hour with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good day.